Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're diving straight into the fascinating, kind of wild, late-stage career and impending 2026 retirement of a literal sports legend. His legacy is fully cemented, but his final chapter is writing a completely different story than anyone expected a decade ago.
During a recent Thursday night football game, Aaron Rodgers hit an absolutely astronomical number. 64,222 career passing yards. With a really solid 249-yard, 4-touchdown performance, he officially passed Ben Roethlisberger, taking sole possession of 5th place on the all-time passing list. Fans online are perfectly capturing just how crazy this longevity really is. One user pointed out the incredibly diverging timelines of these two quarterbacks, and it's staggering. Big Ben took his final snap literally years ago, but Rodgers, even after sitting behind Brett Favre for his first 3 seasons, is still out there grinding.
Section 1. The Chase for Favre.
So who's actually left ahead of him? Well, only 4 names remain on the mountaintop. You've got Tom Brady, sitting pretty much untouchable at the top, followed by Drew Brees and Peyton Manning. But right there at number 4, that's a name Rodgers knows very, very well, his old mentor, Brett Favre.
To catch Favre for 4th place, Rodgers needs exactly 7,616 more passing yards. And look, when you break down the math and look at his current per-season output, wow, that is a massive hill to climb for a quarterback in his early 40s, right?
Of course, it wouldn't be the internet without a little bit of humor. One witty Reddit user joked about Favre's famous turnover history, noting that, hey, getting those yards won't be easy, but at least Rodgers won't be fumbling them away. But really, this brings into focus the mathematical reality of his current situation. He protects the ball better than almost anyone in history, for sure. But time and sheer volume, those are going to be his biggest enemies now.
Section 2. The Pittsburgh Steelers era.
It might sound kind of ironic to call him a Steelers legend right now, especially after spending practically his entire career in Green Bay green and gold. But he has actually been steering the ship in Pittsburgh since 2025. It's a totally different environment and, honestly, a completely different Aaron Rodgers.
The contrast here is just stark. Prime Rodgers was this fearless, deep ball threat, an elite scrambler extending plays for days. But in 2025, he averaged a league-low 5.9 average depth of target. He's basically transformed into a dink-and-dunk game manager with virtually zero rushing upside.
Looking at his 2025 box score, the efficiency is still faintly there. He threw 24 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions, so he definitely still knows how to protect the football. But the yardage volume dropped to 3,322, and the ground game, it just isn't there anymore. He logged a mere 61 rushing yards all season.
These advanced metrics really tell the deeper story. They show an inability, or maybe just an unwillingness, to stretch the field. Only 23.5% of his attempts traveled 10-plus yards downfield, which was actually a league low. However, his bad pass rate stayed pretty respectable at 14.9%. That proves the mind is absolutely still sharp, even if the physical tools are kind of diminishing.
And you know what the best part is? Even Rodgers himself knows his mobility is gone. He was hilariously teasing Jack Campbell on the field during a mic'd-up moment, asking the defender, "You're slower than a 42-year-old?" It's just a great reminder that while the physical skills fade, the competitive fire, and definitely the trash talk, remain elite.
Section 3. The Fantasy Football Reality.
So, what does all of this mean for your fantasy draft? Well, if you rostered him last year, you already know the pain. He finished a really disappointing 17th in fantasy points among quarterbacks in 2025. And here's the kicker, that was despite playing in every single game.
The ceiling is basically completely caved in. He topped 250 passing yards just 3 times all year. Even more alarming, he threw more than 1 touchdown pass only once over his last 9 games. For fantasy managers, he literally went from a weekly set-and-forget starter to someone you're just desperately hoping manages 15 points.
His fantasy value is severely capped right now. You've got the lack of rushing upside to pad stats, sure, but we also have to look at his supporting cast. His receivers ranked 31st in downfield open percentage last year at just 6.2%. Simply put, when nobody's open deep and you can't run to make up the difference, yeah, you're going to have a really hard time piling up touchdowns or a strong yards per attempt.
Section 4. The final season.
So, what's changing for his grand finale? Well, he's back on a 1-year, $25 million deal. But the real story here is the reunion with his former Green Bay head coach Mike McCarthy. Plus, the front office finally armed him with some new downfield weapons in receivers Michael Pittman and Jeremy Bernard.
Now, while the new weapons and a coach like McCarthy might, fashion a more pass-happy game plan than we saw in 2025, the experts at RotoWire project his 2026 fantasy outlook to remain awfully similar to his subpar 2025 campaign. Actually, the harsh reality is that an older quarterback without mobility is heavily dependent on volume, and the upside, it just isn't what it used to be.
As we watch him take this final lap around the league, we really have to ask a deeper question. Is Aaron Rodgers the most efficient passer in NFL history, or just the greatest survivor of his era? And with all the records, the changing teams, and the shifting play styles, how will you remember his final chapter? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.